All right, let's talk about Detective Jahan Dotson, who continues to rise, and he went off against the once vaunted San Francisco pass defense, but he did whatever he wanted.
Yeah, it's Jahan Dotson, just so you know. I don't know how they pronounce it in Australia, but here in America it's Jahan. The J is the stronger there than you pronounced it here.
I guess I should start calling myself Yay Croucher or something, but I believe the next guy.
Yay Croucher.
Yay Croucher,
Yay.
Why not?
Croucher.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am Yay Croucher, as they say in Madrid, joined by Lawrence Jackson at Lord Don't Lose, and we also have the man whose name is on the show, noted Florida and Zoom personality, Matthew Berry, flaunting the Syracuse orange. How's it down there, Matthew?
It's warm. It's sunny. It's Teddy Bridgewater weather, if I may.
There you go.
There you go.
What part of Florida are you in, Matthew?
I'm on the West Coast, the best coast, basically.
There you go.
I'm around the Naples area. I'm just outside of Naples.
I was just checking because I was gonna see if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could use a little help. So I was just checking to see how close you was to them.
I'm about an hour and a half from Tampa, so yeah, I could just drive up the highway.
Yeah, maybe
say,
drop
like,
some,
listen,
drop
Brady,
some plays.
you've had a lot of success with older, slower slot receivers. I can be your Edelman. I can be your Welker. Come on.
You can
I'm
be.
good for 10 snaps.
Yeah.
No, 10 receptions. Come on.
Lawrence, let's be real.
Yeah. As I look at the camera now, I notice that Lawrence and I are wearing the exact same clothes, which I can only assure everyone was
Yeah, I
not
can
by
barely tell
design,
you
but we're
guys
going to have to
apart.
roll with it.
I can barely tell you guys apart.
Yeah, fortunately, Lawrence is wearing a hat, as are you. I didn't get the
and
hat
you've got
memo.
the Australian accent. Otherwise, it's, couldn't tell which one's which.
Team unity right here.
Yeah, team unity. All right, let's get into some Roto World headlines. I'm going to start off talking about Matthew's team. Not as much unity perhaps as there was a couple of weeks ago, but Carson Wentz, Matthew, he is going to start. Taylor Heineke has been benched. As a Commanders man, how do you feel about this?
Not great. It is what it is. What could possibly go wrong? Here's what I will tell you. Carson Wentz is physically more gifted than Taylor Heineke. It's not even particularly close. But the team just doesn't seem to like Carson Wentz. They do rally around Taylor Heineke, and I honestly don't think it's fair that Taylor Heineke loses his job. Taylor Heineke shouldn't have last week. The fact of the matter is he played well, as we talked about. The guy had a QBR of over 83. The offensive line let him down, and he went on the road to San Francisco. He moved the ball. Now, so did Wentz, 12 of 16, 123 yards and a touchdown for Wentz when he came in for Heineke last week. Honestly, what's going to be the difference here as Antonio Gibson, I'm just getting an alert here that Antonio Gibson is not at the start of practice today for the Commanders. What's really going to make the difference here is, can they play good defense and can they run the ball? That's been the success of them the entire time, and certainly going to be the fact the importance of against Cleveland, who over the last month has been a top 3 run defense, but 26th against the run. The ability of them to run Brian Robinson and hopefully Antonio Gibson, if he's out there. If he's not, it'll probably be some Jonathan Williams. But ultimately, their success running the ball is what's going to make the biggest difference here. So whether it's Heineke or Wentz, both guys can hand off just fine. So I kind of I want to see Heineke sort of finish it out, but I sort of get it with Wentz, and maybe because as he's watched me literally talk myself into it on camera, maybe because they sort of rallied behind Heineke and they sort of realized, oh, hey, we've got a good team. Hey, we've got a shot at the postseason. Maybe now when Wentz comes in, they'll respond better than they did initially when they went whatever it was with him, 1-6, 1-5.
Yeah, I like Cleveland +2. I think that this is going to be. I don't think this is going to work out. Lawrence, what are the fantasy repercussions?
Well, as far as the receivers go, right, I don't know that it would be much different, especially we're talking about a guy like Jahan Dotson right here who's who's come back like gangbusters. He's been productive with Taylor Heineke. He's been productive with Carson Wentz. So it's really all about how that team felt about whichever quarterback they wanted to play in the game. So I will say this. Terry McLaurin, I would say he gets a slight bump, because remember, early in the season, he got off to a slow start when Carson Wentz was playing. Jahan Dotson was a touchdown machine in the beginning, and he's a touchdown machine now. So if anything, I would say a slight bump for McLaurin, and I would just narrow the gap between him and Jahan Dotson.
Well, but hey, Lawrence, by slight bump, I assume you mean a slight bump down. I mean, Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, that's what I meant, right.
Yeah, right. Because Terry McLaurin with Carson Wentz just wasn't getting the love in the games that he played with Carson Wentz this year. He averaged over just basically like 11.1 fantasy points per game with Taylor Heineke under center, 15.6. Like Wentz just wasn't looking McLaurin's way the way that Heineke sort of locked in on Terry McLaurin. So I think this is a downgrade for McLaurin. Carson Wentz came into the San Francisco game and threw 16 pass attempts. One of those 16 went to number 17, Terry McLaurin. So I think this is a downgrade for him. I think he's now more of a wide receiver 3 against a tough Browns pass defense. And I do think this is an upgrade for Jahan Dotson, who, obviously, to your point, had the nice game last week as well. With Carson Wentz this year, averaging 13.1 fantasy points per game, averaging 10.3 with Heineke. So more or less the same, slightly better with Wentz. He's really coming to his own. Dotson has as well. And so I think, we talked about him yesterday in the waiver wire show. I think both guys, to Lawrence's point, both guys are sort of wide receiver 3s, which is a downgrade from what McLaurin is and an upgrade for where Dotson is. I do think a more evenly distributed ball in the passing attack is what will happen under Carson Wentz.
Yeah, listen, Matthew, I'm just trying to expand our international audience with my Jahan Dotson pronunciation. I'm thinking big picture. You think about the Americans. Look, I think ultimately that both of these guys are going to be fantasy viable against that Cleveland defense, which is not very good. I think it's going to be a Brian Robinson game, particularly if Antonio Gibson is limited or not able to go. We'll have to monitor that situation. But let's go to another quarterback change. This one forced. News has come out of Miami. Mike McDaniel has confirmed that Tua Tagovailoa has a concussion. He's not likely to play against the New England Patriots. Teddy Bridgewater is in line to start. Look, firstly, obviously our thoughts go to Tua Tagovailoa. Personally, I'm glad that he's not playing and that this has been sorted out and we don't have to worry about a further injury. From the football side of things, Lawrence, with Teddy Bridgewater in line to start, does this change your opinion on any of the Dolphins?
No, and this is why. Because Teddy Bridgewater did have a week where he was quarterback 7. It was against the Vikings in week 6 against the Vikings. He threw for 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So, and they almost won that game had not Jalen Waddle fumbled on the last drive. So, and he also, when Tua got hurt with the bad concussion, he filled in admirably versus the Bengals. So, and in fact, I'll even go even further to say that they still might have the best quarterback in this game with Teddy Bridgewater over Mac Jones. So I expect them to still go win the game. But from a fantasy perspective, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they were still able to do their numbers. They was at least able to get their targets, and they did do numbers. That Skylar Thompson was the quarterback for the Dolphins that you didn't want in the game for the Dolphins.
Yep. Matthew, does this change your opinion on any Dolphin? Look, I think you're starting Tyreek, you're starting Jalen Waddle. Does it do anything around the backfield situation?
No, I don't think so. I think they run their offense. I mean, look, I've said this before about a lot of quarterbacks, but Teddy Bridgewater is a competent NFL quarterback. And I say that not as an insult. Like, he's fine. He'll be able to run the offense. Like, the last time he filled in, it was unfortunate right again. Like, he had the quick injury as well. And so, but against New England, whose secondary is beat up, I mean, the Patriots 26th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Like, I actually think Bridgewater will be fine here. And, yeah, I have no concerns at all about Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or any piece of the Dolphins offense that you would normally start. And I think Bridgewater is actually a viable QB2 streamer this week if you're truly desperate. Like, again, he's in that Carson Wentz, in that Brock Purdy kind of range there, the Daniel Jones range, if you will, slightly lower than Daniel Jones, but like, I prefer Mike White to him. But again, if those guys are gone and you're truly desperate, like, I don't, I like 225 and 2 touchdowns with the pick sounds about right for Teddy Bridgewater this Sunday.
Yep, yeah. I'm with you there. And I think there's this perception that Teddy Bridgewater is like check down Teddy, that it's just dump offs. Like, guy threw it like 60 yards in the air to Tyreek Hill in that primetime game against the Bengals. Like, he can throw it deep. And then also, if he is checked down, Teddy, that's fine. You check it down on short routes to Tyreek or Jalen Waddle, and they can take it to the house. I also think the Patriots' defense is a little bit overrated, just with all their rankings, because they had 3 games against Sam Ehlinger and Zach Wilson combined. So I do think that you can throw on this team. Let's go to Tennessee, where there is a lot of uncertainty around who exactly they're going to be playing on Thursday night. And let's hear from Derrick Henry talking about his status for the game.
I had to talk to on Sunday. Just have emphasis on it. Fight the extra yards. You got to take care of the ball, and that's what I'm trying to do this week.
Said you're going to be ready. Would you, if given the choice, if Coach asks you, do you want to go or you want to play in this game?
Whatever I got to do, and whatever Coach needs me to do, I'll be ready to do.
Important for you guys to get a win, regardless of who's playing or not, to get this off your back, to go into Jacksonville feeling.
Well, I don't think we were playing to lose. I think we go out there and try to get a win, put our best foot for it, and do what we can to get a win.
All right, that was Derrick Henry. I don't think there's much clarity coming out of that, but he certainly wasn't adamant that he's going to play or that he wants to play. So my guess would be that he's not going to play. But Matthew, what are you doing around this situation fantasy-wise?
I think we're waiting until Thursday. That's the one nice thing about the Thursday game here, is that we'll have early clarity onto whether or not Derrick Henry is active. That's encouraging. The fact that he practiced on Tuesday, the fact that he's saying that to the press, like, he doesn't strike me as a guy that wouldn't want to be. It doesn't make sense for him to play. Like, there's literally no logical reason for him to play unless there are some contract incentives that I'm not aware of. But it feels like, listen, especially because we've seen this before from Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. Mike Vrabel, not the team he played for, the team he coaches. Mike Vrabel and the Titans. We've seen this from them before. A couple years ago, when similar situation, they had a second to last week game of the season that did not matter. The last game of the season is the one that mattered, and so they sat Derrick Henry. And then in the last game of the season, he went off and it was awesome. And so feels like why would you play him on a short week in a game that doesn't matter when you desperately need to beat the Jaguars in week 18? I guess how I'm approaching it is hopefully you picked up Hassan Haskins. I think the bigger question, Jay, is what do you do if he's active? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and hopefully we get some better reporting. And again, it feels like it's trending towards maybe he will be, and maybe they'll play some games here. Here's what I would do. I would be aware that this is really risk-reward territory that we're in. And I think it sort of depends on what other options you have. Derrick Henry was a first-round pick, but if you had, trying to think of a good example, like if you had Derrick Henry and you'd also picked up, like, let's say you easily could have Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley based on the way drafts went. Fine. So, okay, you've got Barkley, and then you've also got, like, I don't know, McKinnon or Pacheco, Bam Knight, one of these guys. Like, I'm probably rolling with like I'd probably roll with Barkley and like one of the Kansas City guys this week.
Yep.
Rather than risk it with Henry.
I'm actually in that exact situation you just mentioned, Matthew, with Derrick Henry and Saquon, and I have Miles Sanders, so I'm definitely like, if he doesn't play, it's like, okay, well, at least I don't have to worry about starting him. So if any fantasy managers out there are in a similar situation and you have that running back, like you said, a Chiefs running back, a Miles Sanders, maybe him not playing will be a good thing in this particular situation, so you don't got to sweat that out. Let whoever picked up Hassan Haskins go ahead and start him against Dallas, and you sit back and wait till Sunday to start Miles Sanders or somebody.
Right, but the bigger question to me, Lord, listen, if he's out on Thursday night, then it's easy, obviously, then you pivot to someone else. The question is, what happens if is he active? Are you starting him? Because if he's active, there's a chance that he's Derrick Henry, and you gotta
roll with it.
Usual compliment. But there's also a chance that he's active and he's just, he gets the first series just to sort of keep him active or whatever, and then he sits for the rest of the game. Like, there's a chance that he's active and a decoy, if that makes any sense, right? That he doesn't do anything. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am in a closet.
That scenario you just described right there, Matthew, it was literally burning my heart as you said it, because it's so real. It's a realistic situation that could definitely happen, but that's where we're at with this. So, hey, if he doesn't play, maybe they take some time and let Malik Willis throw the ball.
Hang on, though. I'm not letting you off the hook, Lawrence. I'm not letting you off the hook.
Don't let me off.
You have him on your team. If Derrick Henry is active on Thursday night, are you playing him? You have a team with Saquon Barkley.
Oh, you better believe it.
Are you playing Derrick Henry on Thursday night if he's active?
100%. I won't even look back, because why are we here? This is the championship. They're gonna play him. I have to do it unless we get some type of information saying like he'll be on a snap count or anything like that. If they just say he's playing, I gotta play him.
All right. Well, I think
my fear is that they're going to say we're playing him, but then it turns out he's only playing, 5 snaps.
And I had to be ready for that. Saquon will have to go out and get me 35 then.
I think potentially the more relevant news around this game is on Tony Pollard and not on Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get much out of Derrick Henry either way, to be honest. But I think with Tony Pollard, he's got this thigh injury. He did not practice yesterday. And the thing with Dallas is that, they still have stuff to play for. They're still alive in the NFC East after beating Philadelphia, but it's a very low percentage chance that they're actually going to win the NFC East, because they need Philadelphia to lose to both New Orleans and then a Giants team in Week 18 that probably has nothing to play for. So I'm not sure that we're going to see Tony Pollard. And then the question becomes, Lawrence, like Ezekiel Elliott, is he just a locked-in RB1?
Ooh, our RB1 is tough because of the matchup, but definitely a solid RB2 for me. Like, you would start him with no question and not even be worrying about it. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 8 straight games. Like, that's not something you just turn your head against, The rushing yards aren't always there, but in those 8 games, the 15 carries per game, that's there. So that can only go up if Tony Pollard misses the game. Maybe he'll see a little more in the receiving work, but even though the Tennessee Titans are a tough run defense, you could count on the Dallas Cowboys getting near the goal line versus them and Zeke finishing that drive off.
Yep. I think the other thing, Matthew, too, is that, there's a chance, yes, this Tennessee run defense is incredible, best in the league, but I'm not sure Jeffrey Simmons is going to be playing a ton of snaps in a game that's meaningless for them. So perhaps the run defense isn't as intimidating. And look, if Pollard's out, then everyone is starting Zeke. But even if Pollard is active carrying this injury in a game that doesn't mean a ton for Dallas, are you still comfortable starting Tony Pollard?
Yeah, I'm probably not. I mean, again, we'll sort of see how it plays out today and sort of the reporting. But it is, if they feel good enough to put Tony Pollard out there, then I'm probably starting him, but I'm not feeling great about it. Jerry Jones did say, hey, quote, we don't have him down as something that would keep him out. We're counting on him playing. He's number 17 in my ranks this week, so partially because he may not be 100%. Also, to your point, the Titans give the 6th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. They've been a really good run defense this year, even if they'll be at less than 100% on their side of the ball. So, yeah, I mean, I think if Tony Pollard's active, I'm playing him. To your point, they have something to play for, and I don't think they would make him active, especially because they have Ezekiel Elliott, because they have other running backs that they like there. If Pollard's active, I'm starting him, but I would say that I have Zeke at 23, Pollard at 17. If Pollard were out, Zeke would, to to Lawrence's point, Zeke would be like a mid-tier running back too. Everyone's playing him, but he does need that touchdown to pay off. I mean, again, he's averaging under 4 yards per carry the last 2 games. Like he's really kind of a touchdown-dependent RB2. He's kind of the textbook definition of it. But luckily, he's been doing that. Like I think he's scored now in like, I want to say 6 straight games, something like that. I mean, like it's
8,
something
actually.
ridiculous. So he's a touchdown-dependent RB2, even if Pollard is out. But I think he's got a pretty good shot at getting a touchdown. And I would start Zeke in all the leagues I have him in. I actually have him in 2 finals myself. So.
Okay, let's go to Las Vegas, where just weirdness circling everywhere in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, where we will be next week, Jay Croucher.
Where we will be next week. Sorry,
Yeah.
Lawrence, you're not invited.
Yeah, they ain't hit me up for that. Come on now,
sorry,
what's
well,
happening,
yeah,
NBC?
Yeah,
But,
NBC exec said there's only one person who can come who wears, faded blue jeans and a black T-shirt. So you're out, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
weirdness
We'll
happening.
give you more details on exactly where we'll be, but we will be live in Vegas all next week. So if you happen to be in Sin City next week, come on by and say hi to us as we broadcast live out of Las Vegas. More details on that coming soon.
Indeed. More to come on that, and also potentially more to come on the Raiders quarterback situation, which, look, this has been a disaster season for Vegas all around. And here is Josh McDaniels talking about Derek Carr's struggles.
I mean, look, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? And for us to be able to win at this time of the year and be productive offensively, you have to throw the ball, better than what we've thrown it at times here in the last month and a half. We've been able to win some in spite of that, overall. But, clearly that's not the goal. The goal would be to be more productive than what we've been.
Could be a possibility that maybe you turned it.
I think there's a possibility that we would do the right thing regardless of the position. You know what I mean? Just in terms of the team. You know what I mean?
I think there's a possibility that we would do the right thing, which is one of the worst sentences that I've really ever heard. Look, Matthew, I don't think there's too much to read into this for this season. Yeah, for long term, that's a little strange, but they're not going to bench Derek Carr for Jared Stidham this week, surely. But given especially what happened with, recruiting Devontae Adams, who's Derek Carr's best friend, and all the weirdness that's going on in Vegas, I mean, I don't think there are really any repercussions right now, fantasy-wise.
I agree with you. You're still starting Devontae Adams. You're still starting Josh Jacobs. You're still starting Darren Waller, regardless of who the quarterback is. I agree with you. I think there's a very, very, very slim possibility that their quarterback is anyone other than Derek Carr this week against San Francisco. Again, we know McDaniels likes Stidham. He was a backup in New England when McDaniels was there as well. But think about that. If you actually like Jared Stidham and you want this kid to have a chance, why are you going to force him out there against San Francisco? I mean, the Niners are one of the best defense in the NFL. They're currently one of the hottest defenses in the NFL. That defensive line is playing great. Stidham's going to be running for his life in this one, and I just don't think you do that to the kid. As you see it on your screen, Derek Carr has just really struggled since week 13 in terms of he's got basically 6 touchdown passes in 4 games. Along with 7 interceptions. He's got a 6-to-7 touchdown interception ratio over the last 4 weeks. Here's some quarterbacks that are averaging more fantasy points per game since Derek Carr in week 13. Ready for this list?
Pittman.
Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold,
Man.
Davis Mills.
Oh, no.
That one hurt.
Davis Mills, who
hurts.
isn't even getting full-time snaps. He's splitting with Jeff Driscoll. Davis Mills is averaging more than Derek Carr, who, it's interesting. When you think about how bad so much attention has been made on Russell Wilson and his contract, Derek Carr ain't cheap.
No, he's not.
they paid Derek Carr a lot of money, not Russell Wilson money, but
Right.
Over $100 million, Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Oofa.
He's been worse than Daniel Jones this season, fantasy, real life. It's not even close. I think, Lawrence, that I actually think Carr is going to have a sneakily good game this week because they're back. They're out of the elements. He's got Renfro and Waller who are looking healthier. And he's also going against the San Francisco defense that, yes, is excellent across the board. But also the pass defense wasn't great against the Commanders outside of Nick Bosa wreaking havoc. The Commanders were converting 3rd and longs for fun in that game and were able to move the ball a little bit more than I expected. But what are you expecting from Carr?
Well, it depends. You said a decent game. Well, based on, and really, it's really hasn't just been this past 4 weeks. He hasn't put together a solid stretch of football this whole year. Yet we've been still able to start Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs with no worries. There's been no good stretch for Carr this whole season. So, when you say he gonna have a decent game. For him, probably so. It just depends on what we're talking about here. Like, what are you thinking numbers-wise?
I mean, I'm thinking like 240 yards and a touchdown. And
oh, yeah, he'll get that. He'll get that.
I mean, that's better than what he's been doing.
I mean, sweat it out for the no interception. But, yeah, that is better than what he's been doing. So if he could get that, then, yeah, that'll be okay.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to break.
Jay, this is a much bigger NFL story than fantasy story. If you're in your fantasy finals, you're there because you have a quarterback better than Derek Carr, and you're not turning 100%. To him this week. And I think that even if Jarrett Stidham somehow gets the start, and I don't believe that to be the case, the fact is that even though they've had a couple poor games in Jacobs and Devontae Adams, I think you're still starting those two guys. And obviously, given the tight end position, we've seen some decent production from Darren Waller since he's come back. I think you're starting him as well. So, it's a non-fantasy story in the sense there's no actual item, but I think it's an interesting one for the NFL and for the offseason, no question.
Yep, one to watch. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, keep it open or close it out. We'll tell you whether to start Geno Smith in a revenge game against the New York Jets. Close it out. Now, this is the segment where we just talk about whether we are keeping it open, starting these guys just this week, or closing it out and benching them. We've got myself, Lawrence Jackson, Matthew Berry from an interrogation room. Unfortunately, Matthew was arrested for starting Bam Knight last week. But
well, you know what? I have 8 kids at home. Let's be clear. I have 8 kids at this house. It is the only week all my kids have off for vacation. It's my birthday week, by the way. It's my birthday tomorrow. No big deal.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, my friend. You're the only one who wished me happy birthday. It's fine. No, whatever, Jay. No. Lawrence is my only friend. It's fine. And anyway, so yeah, so to celebrate my birthday and to get the kids out of the cold, I took them all to Florida. So we're in a house in Florida. All 5 of my kids, and 2 of them, the longtime girlfriends of 2 of them, and the other one's got his best friend. And so I've literally got 8 kids, 2 of them are 24, but I have 8 kids in this house with my wife and I. So it's, trying to find a place to do, a podcast for an hour, a reasonably quiet podcast for an hour is not easy. And whatever, the truth of the matter is that the way to do it here is a closet. That I was going to try to reach back and, I don't know.
What are you doing? What are you trying to do?
There you go. There you can see. We have purses. Anyway,
I personally think the closet looks magnificent, and the acoustics are strong, and it's a fantastic hat. And on that note, let's pivot to Geno Smith, who was a no-brainer start in fantasy for so long. Incredible comeback season from Geno. First 5 weeks of the season was playing like the best quarterback in football. Hasn't been as pretty lately, Lawrence, for Geno. And now he gets a matchup which is rich on a narrative perspective, but perhaps not so much so fantasy-wise because the Jets' defense is scary.
Yeah, the Jets' defense is scary. This is why I'm going to keep it open, though. I'm going to give Geno a little leeway here these past 2 weeks. It was a, tough Kansas City team, even though they're not known for their defense. They lost because all them dudes went out there without their shirts off, led by DK. They trying to act all swole, but they wasn't worrying about winning the game. The week before that, they played San Francisco, another tough matchup, and they get one here. But at least this one is at home. And when he was at home the last time versus the Panthers, they did lose the game. And he did throw 2 picks, but he threw 3 touchdowns with it. So now at least getting them back home, the Jets' offense won't provide as much resistance. This is not Kansas City's offense. This is not San Francisco's offense they're going against. It is the great Mike White. It is him. It is Mike White, the GOAT. But still, he just not Patrick Mahomes just yet. He's thrown 40 passes in back-to-back games. So whatever the game script is, we know the Seahawks are going to throw the ball unless they're up 30, which they're not going to be versus this Jets team. So I'm going to give Geno another shot. He's still been a top 10 quarterback the past 4 weeks, despite the, quote-unquote bad playing. So I'm going to leave it open for Geno, baby.
Open or close, Matthew, on Geno?
Yeah, I'm keeping it closed. I'm closing it out, right? Again, we're at a bar. I don't know if you guys get this premise. You didn't, totally explain it, Jay. You sort of explained it, but, again, keep it open, close it out like you're at a bar like you would do with a check here. But I'm going to close it out. So to Lawrence's point, the one thing I will say is, to Lawrence's point, last week against Kansas City, DK Metcalf caught a touchdown pass, 1 foot, half of 1 foot was out of bounds. And so I think if he gets both feet in and that's a touchdown, maybe the narrative changes on him a little bit. But over the last 2 games, Geno Smith has been the 18th best quarterback in fantasy. Right, he's had 1 touchdown pass in each of his last 2 games. Again, if DK had caught in that one, maybe it's a little bit different. But I think this offense really misses Tyler Lockett. I think we, for all the Marquise Goodwin talk, there's just a speed element and a trust element, and just Tyler Lockett's really good element that is missing from the Seahawks offense. Lawrence mentions the matchups the last 2 weeks that they've had without Tyler Lockett in terms of the Niners and the Chiefs, and I get it, but it's not like the Jets are anything to sneeze at. I mean, they've allowed multiple touchdown passes 1 time. They haven't allowed it since week 3, right? The last time they allowed multiple touchdown passes in a game was week 2 of the NFL season. So this is a game, and also I don't have a stat on this, guys, but I'll just say that I think the Jets, knowing they've got Mike White back, gives the entire team confidence. I feel like there's a little bit of oh man, Zach, we even if we stop them on the defensive side, it doesn't matter. But I think Mike White, as crazy as this is, I think Mike White, the fact that the Dolphins lost and the fact that Mike White is returning, the Jets are you know what? We're still alive. We got a shot. We got a real shot this week. And everyone's talking about Geno Smith against his former team. How about Mike White leading the charge here to the playoffs? Joining the likes of Chad Pennington in terms of and Mark Sanchez in terms of all-time Jets greats.
Yeah, legends. I would be shocked if Geno doesn't throw at least 1 pick in this game, because he loves to throw it up for grabs. He makes a ton of big plays, but also a lot of turnover-worthy plays. And I think between Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, the safeties, they will get at least 1 pick in this game. Matthew, let's go.
He's going to make my hate list this week, just so you know.
That's sad.
So you saying you a hater?
Maybe this week in terms of his fantasy matchup.
Matthew's
what's the word on Tyler Lockett anyways? He came back to practice, didn't he?
I think it's trending towards he might give it a go, but it's uncertain at this point.
It is uncertain at the moment, and certainly if Lockett is active, you'd raise him up a little bit, but it's still the Jets. It's still a tough matchup. I think Geno Smith was for the longest time a locked-in QB1. I'm at QB 17 this week. So could he get up to QB 13 or 14 if Lockett's back? Yeah, sure. But he's still a QB 2. He's still somebody who I would lower expectations for this week.
Okay. People wrote off Geno Smith, and now Matthew is writing back. I see how it goes. All right.
That's exactly right.
Matthew, let's talk about Devin Singletary, who had a lot of meh weeks in a row, and then went off against the Bears, though he didn't get a ton of volume. Keeping it open or closing it out on Singletary?
I'm closing it out on Singletary. Again, it's just so hard to trust the volume. It's hard to trust the production. To your point, he's had, prior to last week, he had under 55 rushing yards in 3 straight games. He's had single-digit fantasy points in 4 of the last 5. And now he's got to face the Bengals. Cincinnati is the 4th best run defense in the NFL since week 13. And so, you just see it there on your screen, 11.1, 5.3, 10, 20.5. I don't know, man. Look, if there's something to hang your hat on, it's the fact that the over-under in this game is really high, and we expect a lot of points to be scored, and they do sometimes use Singletary in the passing game. So there's always a chance that he catches a swing pass and gets in. There's always a chance he falls in the end zone. They sort of mix it up in terms of who they use at the goal line. But yeah, I'm closing it out. I just, it's week 17. It is the fantasy finals in almost every league. Like, I'm not getting cute here. And to me, Devin Singletary has had one good game in the last month. It's too cute for me against a very good Bengals defense.
Where you at, Lawrence?
Yeah, so one of Devin Singletary, you mentioned the over-under, Matthew, which is high in this game, 49.5, I believe it is right now. One of Devin Singletary or James Cook is going to score a touchdown. We just don't know which one it's going to be. But here's a question for you. Do you feel like Devin Singletary is better than one of Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, or Ramondre Stevenson? No, right?
No.
Those were the Bengals' last three opponents who were all held under 45 rushing yards. So even if you take out, right, the questionable workload for the Bills running backs, they're not giving up anything to good running backs. So I don't see them giving it up, to Bills running backs who are not as good of players as these other running backs. So I'm going to keep this close too.
Yep, sneaky good and rising defense in Cincinnati. Lawrence, what do you think of J.K. Dobbins against the Steelers, trending towards no Lamar Jackson, even though we don't really say that out loud because the game is on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Definitely tune in to watch Kenny Pickett against Tyler Huntley. But where are you at with J.K. Dobbins, who's had inconsistent usage?
Yeah, so this one, again, it's tough because he didn't get the yards in week 16 that he gotten the previous. There you go, you see it right there, 120 plus yards rushing his first two games back. Didn't quite get that in week 16, and we talked about this last week, him needing that touchdown, and I kept it open, and then we got this because of the rest of this list that we have. I feel like I have to keep it open just based on the fact that we know what type of game this is going to be. We don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to be back. It's going to be just like any other Ravens game, a run-oriented game, and you just banking on the touchdown. He's a more expensive, a more rich, a better version of like Jamal Williams at this point right now. Same level, kind of like Zeke right now. You hoping for that touchdown that he's going to get. So I'll keep it open because he's the lead back, but, I'm not like buying everybody's shots. I'm just going to keep the shots to myself.
Okay, what are you doing with Dobbins, Matthew?
I'm closing it out here as well. The fact of the matter is this is a brutal matchup, right? The Steelers allow the ninth fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. They're the 11th best run defense over the last month. We just saw them shut down Josh Jacobs. It's also, by the way, the fourth best scoring defense over the last 4 weeks as well. It's hard to score against them. They're actually the number one pass defense. They've been really, really good defensively, and this is a game in which the Steelers desperately need. Not that the Ravens aren't going to play tough. They will. They always do. This is always a matchup. Doesn't matter the records. This is one of those literally stereotypical, throw out the records. These two teams hate each other, blah, blah, blah. That's actually true with the Ravens and the Steelers. It doesn't matter what the records are. These two teams will play each other really tough. But I think it's hard to feel good about J.K. Dobbins. Lawrence mentioned the fact no passing game usage, right? And so he really needs rushing. He needs a touchdown to sort of pay off, because he's not going to get passing game usage. And honestly, he's going to get about 13 touches in a game. I mean, that's basically, since he's returned, he's averaging 13.3 carries a game. So can he get to 100 yards on 13.3 carries and a touchdown? Maybe. Out of his last 5 games played, he's had 0 receptions in 4 of them. And it's worth noting that 3 of the last 4 starting running backs against the Steelers had 9 or fewer fantasy points here. So it feels like it's one of the lowest over-unders on the slate. I think points are going to be hard to come by in this game, period. And so with J.K. Dobbins, it really is how lucky do you feel? Do you think he falls into the end zone? Because if he doesn't score in this game, you're looking at 6 or 7 points. I don't think I would take the under on 120. I don't think his prop line has come out yet on BetMGM, but whatever that number is, I'd take the under.
Yeah, I feel like this is a game we need to get Willis McGahee into somehow. Let's go to Tampa Bay. Matthew, open or close on Rachaad White, who is in a backfield that's now trending towards Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm also closing it out here. It's week 17. I am not getting cute. All these guys are desperation plays. All these guys are guys that, if I'm truly forced to, but if I have a better option, if I have a pivot to somebody that's a little bit more viable, then yeah, close it out on Rachaad White. So under 12 or fewer touches now in back-to-back games, to your point, right? They are trending more toward Leonard Fournette. If you watch that game against Arizona, and contractually I was obligated to, if you watch that game against Arizona, the Tampa Bay offense, such as it was, moved a lot better with Leonard Fournette out there. He hasn't been used in the receiving game. That's the other thing. That was always the calling card for Rachaad White earlier this year. He's a better pass catcher. They really trust him in pass pro. They're using him in the passing game. We know Tom Brady likes to dump off. Well, he's now had under 25 receiving yards in 3 straight games. Fournette has had over 30 in 4 straight. They're using Fournette more, honestly, like they did last year. They're using Fournette not only as the pass-catching running back, but also as the early down back. They're just Fournette, I think, getting healthier, and they're leaning on him as they get into crunch time here. It's not a great matchup with the Panthers, as Carolina is allowing under 50 yards from scrimmage to starting running backs in 3 straight games. And so, they shut down Detroit's run game, their 3-headed monster last week as well. It's a top 3 run defense over the last 4 weeks. I'm closing it on Rachaad White.
Okay, let's go rapid fire, Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it quick. I'm closing it, man. We talked about it last week, fantasy playoff Lenny, and he's here. He's here now. 29 touches, 162 yards. He's the guy for the playoffs, closing that.
All right, open or close, Lawrence, on Michael Pittman, who has Nick Foles throwing him the ball in the Meadowlands.
I'm closing this because, the Giants' secondary is banged up. But did you see those people? He got sacked 7 times. Yeah. And if he wasn't getting sacked, he was throwing it right to the defense. The Giants' pass rush is probably just as ferocious, or they have been lately. They've had at least 3 sacks in 3 straight games. So I'm closing on Michael Pittman.
Yep. Matthew, I assume close on Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to close it out. He's my wide receiver 27 this week. The volume's been there, at least 7 targets in 5 of the last 6. The problem is he's not scoring touchdowns. He's had 1 touchdown since week 1. He's had fewer than 8 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3. Nick Foles looks awful. Like you're sort of how could this guy be 3rd string on the Colts? Oh, that's how. And I get it. The Giants secondary is a little bit beat up, but this game is in New York, or in New Jersey, I should say. The Giants are the home team in this one. Could be cold weather as well. Unfortunately, as much as I love Michael Pittman, he's a very risky wide receiver 3. So if I have better options, I'm looking elsewhere. I'm closing it out.
Okay, was one of those places you're looking elsewhere at Brandon Aiyuk, Matthew?
Yeah, I think I thought Aiyuk looked pretty good last week, right? With his 81 receiving yards. It's a nice matchup with Las Vegas. They allow the 6th highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers. No Deebo Samuel. And give Brock Purdy credit. Brock Purdy is looking like a viable quarterback. Now, you see it there on your screen, that Week 15 again, the game with the Seahawks, just 2 for 19. And Week 14, obviously, 2 for 56. He did score the touchdown there. Yes, look, under 5 targets in 2 of his last 3. But I do think they want Purdy to get more and more comfortable. The Raiders are going to have to pay attention to George Kittle after the last 2 weeks. So, look, I do think... Look, I think he's a viable wide receiver 4. You'd have to be pretty far down to get it, but if Aiyuk is somebody that you would normally start, I'm going to keep it open. He's wide receiver 33. You know what I mean? All this is relative because it all depends on sort of what your team is. Again, Pittman's wide receiver 27, but that's lower than I've normally had him this year. Aiyuk's wide receiver 33, which is, I think, the highest I've had him in the Brock Purdy era. So, again, it's all contextual. Depends on what else you have and how deep you are. But if you would normally consider starting Brandon Aiyuk, I feel good about him this week.
How do you feel about Brandon Aiyuk?
Well, just like you're saying it being relative, that I'll give you an example. It's relative to me. I benched him for Marquise Goodwin last week, and you see where that got me. I will not be making that same mistake this week unless Tyler Lockett comes back. So I'm going to keep this open. He finally showed some type of signs of life with Brock Purdy when it looked like there could be none. So I'll keep it open.
Okay, last 2 names on the list, Lawrence, Gabe Davis and Alan Lazard. Open or shut on these guys?
Gabe Davis is wide receiver 34 this year. Close. Alan Lazard, I'm going to keep it open.
Yep. Uncertainty around Christian Watson's status for that game against Minnesota, which I think will impact Lazard, obviously, who had 11 targets with Watson missing the second half. But, Matthew, what are you doing with Davis and Lazard?
I'm keeping both open. With Davis, I mean, look, he finally scored a touchdown last week. We talked about it this game on Monday night. One of the highest, if not the highest, over-under on the slate. We expect a ton of points to be scored. We don't think they're going to be able to run against Cincinnati. They're going to have to throw to keep up with them. Cincinnati 25th in pass defense since week 13. So I'm actually, again, with Gabe Davis, he's West Coast Mike Williams. You're either always starting him or always benching him, and certainly signs of life from him last week. 6 targets or more in 3 of the last 4 for Gabriel Davis. As for Alan Lazard, he got double-digit targets last week. Minnesota is somebody that you can throw on. They allow the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. They're one of 2 teams to give up over 3,000 receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. You mentioned Christian Watson. We'll see if he's going to play. He may not play in this game, or if he may be limited as well. Aaron Rodgers, believe it or not, he always kills Minnesota. He's going to make my love list this week. I do think Rodgers has a big game against Minnesota this week, who's the second worst pass defense over the last 4 weeks. I'm keeping it open on Alan Lazard, my wide receiver 26 this week.
Okay, we're going to go to break. When we come back, what's on tap? We'll break down Cowboys-Titans, Bears-Lions, and showdown between the Panthers and the Buccaneers-Lions. All right, what's on tap? Let's start off. Cowboys-Titans. Cowboys are now 11-point favorites against the Titans. That line is going up. The total is 40. We touched on the running backs, Matthew, but are you downgrading expectations for Dak and CD Lamb in a game that might get out of hand pretty quickly?
Not to any extent that would matter for our purposes. Like, do I think that, Dak Prescott, who's had under 280 passing yards in 7 of the 9 games since returning from injury, do I think he gets to 300 yards in this one? Probably not. I think Dak is much more of a floor quarterback these days than he is a upside quarterback, but I'm still starting him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's a high-end QB2 this week, low-end QB1. He's sort of in that range, borderline top 12-ish for me. Dak Prescott, and so if you would normally start Dak, I think you're still rolling with him. Obviously, CD Lamb, 8s, as I call him. CD and I are boys. 8s. I think 8s you're starting. He's my wide receiver 7, 120 receiving yards each the back. 2 straight games. Like, he's just awesome. I can't imagine you're benching him. By the way, the way to move the ball against Tennessee is obviously through the pass.
Yes.
Really good run defense, secondary that has struggled. By the way, and a defense that might be resting starters. This game means nothing to the Tennessee Titans. This game does mean something to the Dallas Cowboys. Mike Vrabel will have him playing, but still, have him playing tough. He'll coach him up, but still. Yeah, I think for our purposes, if you would normally start Dak Prescott, you're going to continue to start him. Same, and I would say the same for CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup in deeper leagues. If you would normally start those guys, I'm not suddenly changing my mind because there's a chance it gets out of hand early.
Yeah, I will say on Dak, outside of the pick 6, which was, it's hard to say outside of the pick 6, which was pretty crucial against Philadelphia, he was magnificent in that game. The 3rd and 30 throw to T.Y. Hilton was as good as it gets, so it certainly seems like he's rounding into form. Lawrence, other side of the ball is not as exciting. If Derrick Henry is out, are there any Titans you're starting?
No, I'm not, If Hassan Haskins gets that role and it's just like, hey, man, y'all can have it. I'm good. Treylon Burks has come back. He hasn't really, done much there. Yeah, nah.
Yep.
I don't even know, because they might be losing and still try to run the ball.
Yeah. I think it's
I don't know what you're going to do.
It's a bit of a trap being like, oh, Derrick Henry's out. Got to go pick up Hassan Haskins. Like, Hassan Haskins might have 33 yards and no touchdowns on 12 carries in a game where they're probably going to be loading the box. Let's go to Bears.
There's no threat. With Malik Willis under center, there's literally no threat to this passing game. He's not ready for prime time yet. And so, again, any of the complimentary pass catchers that you might have considered, whether it's Treylon Burks, whether it's Chig Okonkwo, Robert Woods in super deep leagues, whatever. No, stop it. It's literally Derrick Henry.
That would be an example
starts and stops in terms of fantasy production with Derrick Henry.
Yep. All right,
Yeah.
let's jump to Bears-Lions. The Bears are 6-point dogs, and the total is 52, which is massive, Lawrence. Is there any Lions running back you feel comfortable starting in a pretty favorable matchup?
I would say I feel comfortable starting both of them, right? Like you said, this is the highest over-under on the slate this weekend. I feel a little better about DeAndre Swift because of the, efficiency factor. Jamal Williams hasn't been that. I think he's had 3 straight games of rushing under 40 yards, and he's not getting his signature touchdowns, which brings him fantasy relevance. But again, DeAndre Swift's his usage has been up and down every week as well. So, but versus the Chicago Bears, who are the 4th worst against running backs in fantasy, you like the matchup for both. If you have either one of them, I'd throw them in there if you have to.
Yep. Matthew, you comfortable starting both Swift and Williams against the Bears?
Comfortable is a strong word. No, I don't think that. I don't think I'm necessarily comfortable starting them. It sort of depends on what else you have. You see it there, but the truth of the matter is right. We expect a lot of scoring to happen in this game. The Bears defense has been really bad against the run. As we saw. Last week, in fact. Since week 13, no team in the NFL is giving up more rushing yards per game than the Chicago Bears. We saw what the prior to that game dormant Bills running attack did against them. So I think they're both viable flex plays, but that's about it because it is a bit of a 3-headed monster. We're seeing more Justin Jackson than we should. We do expect a lot of scoring to be. Honestly, the rushing player that I am most looking forward to in this game is Justin Fields, right? Last time he played the Lions, he had 147 rushing yards, Justin Fields, right? The Lions give the 2nd most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks, as we see Justin Fields right here just doing Justin Fields-like things against the Lions. Unbelievable play here. In Week 10, he had 39.4 fantasy points against the Lions. He's my number 4 quarterback this week. Justin Fields, to me, he's going to make the love list this week. I expect him to have the most rushing yards. I don't know if that's a prop you can bet, but that would be the one. If I had to bet somebody to have the most rushing yards in the Lions-Bears game, give me Justin Fields. But yeah, this is a sneakily good fantasy game between two, one bad team and one, middle of the pack team.
Yeah, might be 70 points in that game. Just quickly on Panthers-Bucs. Bucs are 3-point favorites there at home. Matthew, how are you handling the Panthers backfield?
I'm starting both of them. They're running it 45 times a game. So, again, they're both sort of flex plays for me. But, I have Chuba Hubbard at 34. I have Deontay Foreman at 31. So they're both touchdown-dependent flexes. But if you have normally been starting them, I would go ahead and start them again. I'm not worried about Tampa Bay. So, again, I think they're, if you've been starting them, I would continue to roll with them. I think both guys get enough work here to be flex viable.
All right. In a word, starting both?
Yes.
All right, done. Easy. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, Sunday Night 7 predicted contest. Now, I'm going to kick us off with Kenny Pickett's passing yards, which goes in bands from sub 180 yards all the way up to 260 plus. I like the big bands in these ones, gives you more range of outcomes. I'm going to go sub 180 yards. This is going to be an ugly game. This is going to be, I think, a 13-10, grind it out, and the Baltimore secondary is getting better. So give me under 180 passing yards for Kenny Pickett. Lawrence, what are you doing with Mark Andrews?
Yeah, going to be an ugly game, just like you said. I'm going to go Mark Andrews under 45 right here because in the past 3 games, he's had 45 and under. So give me 45 and under there.
Okay, I like it. Matthew, what are you doing with Najee Harris's total yards?
Yeah, I'm going to go for that 80 to 89 yard option there. It's kind of a narrow window to hit, but he's had at least 80 yards in 5 of the last 7 games. I don't think he'll be particularly efficient, but I think volume gets it there. To your point about Kenny Pickett not wanting to not having to throw a bunch. So I think it's just a lot of work for Najee Harris that he grinds his way out at like probably 3 yards a carry, but gets there, I think, somewhere between 80 and 89 total yards.
Okay, I like it. Lawrence, who's going to win this game? Steelers, Ravens.
Ravens? Yeah, Ravens winning.
Ravens with these? All right. Matthew, you want to make a prediction? It's Ravens -3. The total is a juicy 36 flat.
Don't tempt them.
I think the Steelers win this game.
What?
Oh, wow.
I think yeah, I do. I don't know. I have to think this through because I'm going to have to pick this one on Sunday night, so I may change but my gut right now tells me I think the Steelers grind one out here.
Wow. Aren't you you're leading the picks, right? So you might put it all on the line with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I'm flip-flopping on this one, but at the moment, I sort of feel like Pittsburgh wins this one. I don't know.
Okay, there you go. That's a good way to close us out. We are done here, Lawrence. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. From me, my twin, Lawrence Jackson, and Matthew Berry. Happy birthday, Matthew. Happy birthday, everyone. Peace
yes,
out.
Sir.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.